To be honest, the Vietnam War wasn't my first choice when thinking of wars to do, but I didn't want to go too modern. I really wanted to include the M16, especially since these iron sights are just really nice. So if there's any wars or specific weapon sets you want me to try and model for, then feel free to tell me in either the YouTube comments or the Reddit comments, and tell me which one you think would suit, and which one you think would actually be feasible for me to do. You know, not like the American Civil War or something like that, where there was barely 3 or 4 different types of weapons. Thanks to all of the positive feedback I received from the World War II weapon model set, I've decided to develop another weapon model set. This time I've decided to, instead of using World War II, I've gone with a much more recent war of the Vietnam War, seeing as there's a lot more weapons to choose from, because it's more modern, so more weapons were developed and sold for profit to the war effort. So first of all, we've got the M16A1. Now the M16A1 was, like the M1 carbine last time, the American infantry weapon of choice in the Vietnam War. It's got the same level of detail as the Sten gun did for the AR last time, because this replaces the AK or assault rifle. ADS on this is much better than before. If you look here, everything is perfectly lined up. So if I just take one shot, let it rest. Whereas before, on a lot of my weapons, it was pointed out by multiple people that they weren't lined up properly. Whereas this time, I've really tried to make sure they're all lined up. So that was the M16A1. I'm going to try to speed through these as quickly as possible. So next up, this is the M1911A1. I believe the A1 stands pretty much for American one, because it's American infantry. But this was the standard. This was again the standard weapon for American soldiers in the Vietnam War. So this was given to every American soldier, no matter their rank, and then swapped out if they were a higher rank or wanted a different weapon, sort of thing. So yeah, that's pretty much it. The iron sights on this line up perfectly again, as I was explaining, and it even goes as far as to show the detail of the hollow trigger. You can see the 3 holes there, and that was because if they produced 1,000,000 weapons, even just that there of punching out them holes, it was still structurally sound, and the amount of money they saved from that was insane. It's just a little small fact. Next up, we're going to have the assault rifle and deagle. Sniper rifle and deagle even. This is something to look out for as well, is that your game will freeze sometimes when using these models, because it's trying to load a lot more models than it usually is, like a lot higher quality in some cases, with all of the details on it. So this here is the Svd Dragunov. This is quite a popular weapon in lots of games, but originally started life being produced by the Soviets, who sold it to the the North Vietnamese, who were fighting the South Vietnamese and Americans, because they supported communism pretty much. So this was supplied to the North Vietnamese, sorry, by the Soviets. Now the scoping on this again goes slightly underneath when you scope in, so it just goes just underneath it, and then the scope appears above it. But again, like before, no scopes aren't really a thing. You know, you don't need to have it completely accurate here. It just needs to look nice. The second weapon is a Mauser C96, I think it is. Just I've got notes here. Yeah, Mauser C96. Now Mauser C96 was originally a German weapon used in World War II. However, after World War II, they were sold. After World War II, the Soviets took quite a few of them and took the design plans, and then made the Mausers and produced the Mausers themselves. The Mausers, sorry, I've got a bit of a cold, so that might be why I sniff a bit in this. But what's interesting about this weapon compared to most of the other ones, though, is that the Viet Cong, so the North Vietnamese, actually produced their own Mausers. They were given the design plans by the Chinese and by the Russians who were making them, and they crudely made them themselves to use in war. That's just a thing. Also, the ADSness is slightly weird, but it still works perfectly. So if I shoot here and let it come to rest, and then I just walk all the way in, you can see that this bullet holes appeared exactly where I was aiming, or just above exactly where I was aiming, so on top of like the point. Moving swiftly on, we've got running gun. Now you might recognise this. This is a similar. It's not exactly the same, but it's similar to the LMG from our World War II models. This is the Thompson gun. This is called Thompson. Thompson SMG is all it's really called. It was used by the South Vietnam and in small numbers by the US artillery and helicopter corps. This is completely accurate now, as before it's slightly off. So if you have a look there, it's completely accurate with the iron sights. So as I said, I'm just speeding through these. So that's the Thompson, or Tommy gun as it's referred to. Now this is quite a cool one. This is the LMG. Now this LMG is the M60 LMG, standard light machine gun for the for not only America but also Australia, New Zealand, and the South Vietnam, or well, the Vietnam Army, which was operating out of South Vietnam at the time. So this has, it might not actually come up on the video because the video quality's been quite poor lately. I'll try and put it up. This, when you download this, you'll see it actually has a very fine crosshair at the top, which lines up perfectly, but pretty much anything within the bullet size is quite large, obviously, and so anything within that circle when you're ADSing will be hit by the bullet pretty much. There's a lot of detail on this. It doesn't really do it justice because the ammo box is in the way, but there is a lot of detail on the M60. So again, moving on, we have the Revolver. This Revolver is a Colt detective. This is called a Colt Detective Special. It's a stub nose revolver. As you can see, it's got a very short barrel. It's got a very it was originally made for concealed carry by detectives and undercover police officers. That's why it's called that's why it's obviously called the Detective Special, because it's used by detectives and police. It's also, again, as I said, all of these are going to be extremely accurate because I spent a very long time making sure the iron sights lined up pretty much completely accurate. Because you see, if I fire here and it comes to rest, in between the crook of that is the bullet, or it's the bullet hole, if you know what I mean. And then if I just do it again, you can see that's a very small bullet hole and fits exactly into the crux of this crosshair. So moving on again from detective, not many more to go now. I've got the semi-auto. This is a semi-auto. This is not actually semi-auto. This, as you might not be able to see, it's got a bolt on the side of it. It's a bolt-action sniper rifle, but there wasn't really any semi-auto sniper rifles used in the Vietnam War, not by the Americans or by the Viet Cong. So this is actually modelled after the. Let me just have a look at that. It's actually the M40A1, which was used exclusively by the US Marine Corps. That's all that needs to be said about this, really. I just realised that I did actually miss out shotgun, so we'll go back to shotgun. Shotgun's an interesting one. This is the Stevens 520. It's probably one of the lesser known weapons on this list, Stevens 520, and it was actually used from World War I all the way up to the Vietnam War, and this would have been included in the World War II weapon pack, except from this is quite a new model. It was only uploaded very recently, so I didn't actually know about it when I was doing the World War II. So the ADS on this also might not show up like the LMG, but there is a very small iron sight that sticks up at the end. However, you can't really get dead accurate with this because obviously there's spread on it. So if you go right up to a wall and fire, you can see that the crosshair is in the middle of these shots. So right in the middle there, right in the middle, just there. So it does line up in that sense. So again, moving on to second to last, this is going to be rocket launcher. Now, also, just something to note is that in this window here, if we change to Triggerman, for example, it looks very weird, but it doesn't look like that in game because everyone's running around, and I think the models are a slightly different position in game because it doesn't look like that in game. It looks really weird there, but it doesn't look like that in game. Anyway, that was a bit of a sidetrack. This is the this is the M72 Law, and it's a 66mm anti-tank rocket launcher, and it was used by the South Vietnamese Army and also the US Army, seeing as the South Vietnamese Army and the US Army were working together. Now, the ADS on this is quite weird. If you have a look through here, you can see multiple holes. These ones just here, it's hard to see. However, if you aim through it and aim above the first one, so like at that line, that is where your rocket's gonna go. So if I aim to hit like the middle of that and I fire there, oh well, shit, this isn't a very accurate weapon, is it? Anyway, yeah, moving swiftly on. Not gonna delay any longer. This is the last one, and I know that last time I said that that dual wielding wasn't a thing, and it really wasn't, but this is something that I felt I needed to include. This is the Scorpions. These were automatic. They were used by these are automatic pistols used by the Viet Cong, supplied by the Russians again, and the Czechoslovakians, I think, as well. Yeah, produced in Czechoslovakia. And now, dual wielding is really weird in Kronka in the fact that the distance between the weapons stays exactly the same, and the position of them is what changes. So I can either have it completely in one hand and floating off of the other, or vice versa. So instead I chose to have it so it's like slightly in both hands, so it looks probably kind of like he's holding it. These Scorpions were also, this is the Scorpion, and this was also in the Vietnam War, as I said. How to actually download, if you've got the World War II ones already, that's fine. What you're going to want to do is, if I just minimize this here, minimize that, minimize all this, you can see this is my new model swap. Don't need you open. So what I've ended up doing is I went into my init file, which you right click, edit with Notepad. I've got Notepad++, but you can edit with Notepad. I did Control A, Control C, and I copied it all. I don't need to. And if you have a look in here, I've got a folder named World War II models, and in there I copied everything except from manifest, readme, and init, which is also quite easy to do. So all you're going to have to do is do Control A, and then whilst holding the Control key, click init, manifest, and readme, and that'll deselect these. So they won't be selected when dragging. See, it's got 22, whereas if I select these now, it's got 25. And once you've done that, just drop them into a new folder. So you see I've got mine as World War II models. So you can see in here I've got all of the models and textures from before. And if you just create a blank Notepad or Notepad++ thing, and just call it World War II in it, and then paste in your stuff here, then you can have it stored. And so what you're going to want to do then is you don't want to use this. If you then Control A, Control C on, so let's say you've this is in the case that you've used the Vietnam War, now you want to go back to World War II, you copy it, you're going to minimize it or close it or whatever. This is saved, so I can close it. You go into Model Swapper, open up this with Notepad++, assuming you've already got this all copied and pasted onto another file. Then you Control A and then Control V, and you can see everything gets pasted in the correct way. I'm just going to undo because obviously I want these ones here. So yeah, that's how you swap it all around and get them all saved. So I can really swap between the two if I wanted to. Things used, so you know. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. I hope you enjoyed. As always, download links will be in the description.